Okay, well, I'm going to go ahead and get started here and show you guys some stuff. I don't know if there's anybody out there or not. I was having some technical difficulties trying to get the countdown to play, and I wanted to make sure that everything was streaming and so forth. So I was able to look at. I can't have an extra window up for some reason. It's like, and I don't know if it's a problem with our with our internet bandwidth, or if it's just processing thing on the computer or not. But hopefully I'll be able to upgrade to a higher system and stuff later this year, and if there's any issues with it streaming and so forth after that, then I'll probably bump up what our bandwidth is on our internet provider. But anyway, if you guys are dropping by and checking out what we're working on tonight, I'm going to be working on some more stuff like we did last week. I'm going to kind of pick up with the Alanti that we had started on. I had worked on the boots and a head and some of the parts and so forth last week. But jumping in, I had just posted this earlier on Facebook today. So I kind of wanted to give you a preview of the new Scutter model. So let's switch over to that, and so you can see the new Edo Scutter. So I've got textures enabled and stuff on this because I'm going to render out some images of it for the Counterblast role-playing game. And in the live mode like this, the bubble canopy doesn't really show up as clear. You have to render an image of it, so you can kind of see the pilot and so forth in there. I'll render out and see if it'll render. Everything's running really slow, and I've shut down like a bunch of stuff. I'm not running music or anything else other than OBS for the broadcast and ZBrush, and that's it. So we'll see what it'll do. Okay, it's rendering right now. So what I did was, and I'll kind of talk to you about my thoughts on putting this together. The original Scutter model, I kind of wanted to update it and sort of redo it, since I had sculpted the Strider and we had put that out as a kit. So on this one, I've resculpted the mechanical pinchers on the front of it, and I've given it scaled down weaponry like on the Strider, and the legs are similar, but they're a little bit different. They're not quite as long, or as tall. but it's still a tripod. It's still, and it's done rendering there, so you can kind of, it's still running the render on it. So, oh, hey, it looks like Shane's popped up. Hey, Shane, thanks for dropping in and hanging out. I know it's late for you over there. I appreciate you staying up and checking out the ZBrushing on here. So hopefully I'll have some stuff that'll be interesting for you to see this evening. And be sure, if you've got any questions about, how I'm doing anything, to drop those in the chat there. There's a little bit of a delay, it looks like, but I should be able to answer questions and so forth. Okay, so here you can see that it's rendered the clear dome, and you can see the little pilot in there. And I kind of wanted this gooey sort of interior look to the where the pilot sits, as if it's some kind of living tissue or meat or something. I don't know, whatever the inside of the thing is, that they kind of grow these machines or whatever. So that's what I did there. And so, like, if I hide that, you can kind of see there's a little bit more detail in there that I've got. And then let me show you the back of this if I can get it to. I mean, it's really moving slow. Let's see if I can get that turned around. Yeah. So I created like a little engine compartment on the back that's got, I guess, ultonium. Whoa! Oh, hold it. It's got these ultonium coils on there, so that kind of simulates, how it would be powered or whatever. But anyway, it's not super tall. It's not as tall as the Strider was. And let's see, I've got my little reference model here, Brack Maxter, so you can see that it's just about twice as tall as he is. So I want to say it's like 50 or 60 millimeters tall, and the bubble dome that's on the top of it's 25 millimeters across, or 1 inch. So, but I worked on that the last couple of days to try to get that set up because I needed to render some pictures of it for the Counterblast role-playing game book. So that's why I created these textures and so forth on it to give it a little bit of color. And then when I export that render, I'll put it into Photoshop and tweak it and add some other lighting and so forth on there for the book. So anyway, but that's what I was going to start with, and then I'll break this model apart into different sections and print that out, and that should be. I'm hoping that'll be in the web store either this weekend or next week. So we'll see how it prints out. So, but let's we'll go ahead and go back and open up the Alanti file that we were working on last time, and I wanted to try to get a little bit of that done, a little bit more work on those guys. I've got three characters like right away that I want to try to get done. And last time, in last week's video, I showed the concept art and so forth for Unagi, and I can kind of open that up again. I think it'll load up. Let's see. Will it open? No. Let's go back to. Let's see. There he is. Yeah. So I'm going to be resculpting this guy. So and I had showed him last time. But right now I'm just trying to get a base model finished. For just a generic Alanti guy. So this is where we left off, and I think, yeah, okay. So I did a separate version of the head. Okay, so this is head B, or yeah. So I also did like an open mouth version of him. So I kind of resculpted around the mouth area, and so I've got two different versions of that, and these are kind of modular heads too. So that I've got, like a connection point here that I'll be able to kind of create a collar and so forth to attach that to the neck, and that way you could, swap the heads out or something like that. So, oh yeah, thanks, Yugos. In the chat there, you were talking about turning on dynamics in the solo. Yeah, and that what's going on right now is that my computer is just running really slow. It's not really, it's a setting in ZBrush for that. It's just it's trying to run the streaming app and some other stuff. And of course I don't know if my wife is, running stuff, on her iPad or whatever too, or at the TV, on the TV or something. So I think we either need to either update the streaming service or I need to just upgrade my computer. So, but this is where I got to last time. So I think what we're going to do is we're going to kind of pick up here, and I'm going to I'm going to try to finish out at least the base figure on this, and if I can get him done, soon enough, then we'll go over and then I'll sculpt on the Edo that I needed to get some of those done. The next little batch of Edo that I'm working on are the primelings, which are kind of like the bigger leader Edo Fleeny, the octopus guys. So I need to get some of those blocked out too. But anyway, so let me get started on this, and I'm gonna go in and isolate the. There we go. Isolate the arms, and we'll kind of work on this arm section and get that blocked out. I think I just want to work on this one. Yeah. And then we've got, yeah, okay. So here I've got a pretty low res mesh for this arm, and I've got that broken into 3 segments. So I've got the elbow here and the biceps and triceps and then the deltoids and stuff up at the top of there. And I'm not really quite sure how I'm going to costume this guy. So we'll go back to this. And I kind of like the bare arm on that. So may do something like that. This guy's not going to have GDF armor. So, and I think the art has got a similar kind of a thing. She's got like a leather vest with some padding and stuff on it. So that's kind of cool. I kind of like these mantles across here. That's kind of cool looking. So let's go, and I kind of want to show off this fin on the arm. I think I want to add sort of that design element to it. So let's see what we can figure out. And I think I want to leave this separate as much as possible. I know what I'll do. Let's make a sleeve. Let's see. Insert. Okay, so I'm going to open up a cylinder there, and all right. Just get this kind of in the rough general area, and let's inflate that a little bit. Oh, there we go. That's not what I want to do at all. See if I can grab that. There we go. Okay, kind of round out those edges a little bit. And yeah, okay. So also what I'm going to do is I'm going to go into the gizmo and select taper, so I can create a little taper up at the top and at the bottom for that cuff. Okay. What happened here? Oh, okay. Somehow the back of the cuff had gotten flattened for some reason. I think I hit it with the tool, the Sculptin tool. Okay, there we go. All right. Hey Brian, thanks for jumping in and joining the chat and everything here. I've got two new Illyrians. Let me show you those here in just a second. I had sculpted some for because we're gonna have a new male and a new female Illyrian character on the Kickstarter project because we're doing a set of 8 new characters for that, and so there's like 4 different species that we're doing: the Alanti, Illyrians, and the Shrenar, and then a set of humans. So both male and female of each one of those. So I've already got the new Illyrians sculpted, and I'm going to be sending those off to mold. I think next month. And I've got some prints. I've got them printed out already, and the let's see, where are they? I think they're in. Are they in characters? Or are they in? Nope. I think they're up here. Yep. Here we go. Yeah. Okay. So here's the Illyrian, the male Illyrian that we've got, and so I've already got the masters of those printed out, and those will be going to mold. Like I said, probably in March or April or so. And I've got the print masters, and so I'll probably take one of those, and I'll either paint that up or we'll send it to Mary or something and have her print these. But yeah, so I've got the iconic, or I guess the Pathfinder stuff calls their characters iconics in the rule book. I think for Savage Worlds they're archetypes. So this would be our male Illyrian archetype, and so then we've got a female Illyrian archetype, and she's kind of a tech with like a little specialty bag and I guess some kind of little scanner device type of a thing. So yeah. So these will be cast in Seocast plastic for the Kickstarter project, and then we'll also make those available as STL files on the Kickstarter, so you can pick out which way you want them. But then I also do have a set of some more Illyrians that I'm working on. I think it's like a ground crew or something, like a flight deck ground crew set, but those will be coming out. I don't know if it'll be after the project or before. If I can squeeze them in before we get the Kickstarter project running, then I'll put them out then. But what I've got stacked up to release next is Unagi, which is one of the Alanti that I'm working on, and then we're going to do a set of Edo primelings, which are the Edo leaders. So because we've got, I just put those spawnlings out a couple of weeks ago, so that way they'll have somebody to tell them what to do, I guess. Okay, so I think we've got pretty much. Oh, thanks, man. I'm glad you like that. All right, so what we're going to do is I think I'm going to break this arm into two sections, where I've got that cuff, and then that way it'll be a little bit easier to pose if I want to change the poses and stuff on that. So, okay, so let's do this. We're going to go back to here, and let's go, and I'm going to go up and divide that mesh so that it's a little bit smoother. And we're going to do like we did before. I'm going to take and dynamesh that all into one mesh. And let's see, I think that's usually 512 is pretty good for that. Yeah, that's great. Okay, so now that's all one piece of geometry. Okay, and then I'm going to split that, and there's a couple of different ways to do that, and I think well, okay, I'm going to go up to this, and let's see, I can either slice it or I can divide it by making a different polygroup. Okay, so actually I'm just going to pick the slice curve because that's probably the fastest, and then I'm just going to drag that across here, and what that's going to do is it's going to split the mesh into two parts as polygroups. So, and I think, oh, I hope that's across the cuff. Yeah, okay. So then what I can do is I can select this polygroup and mask it, and then I can split mask points. Okay, and then it's created, its own object here. But it's open on this end. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to click close holes and close that up, and then I'm going to remesh that. So I can just drag this and it should dynamesh everything. Okay. And let's see. Now I can work on this section of the arm, the lower arm, just on its own. But what I want to do is I want to add that fin on the back of his elbow there. So let's go up here. I'm going to pick my sphere object and go back to the arms and insert this. Oh goodness, I keep forgetting how big those things are. I need to go back and resize them. Okay. I think that's probably going to give me what I'm looking for. Let's taper this end out a little bit. And I don't want it thicker. We'll taper this end in just a little bit. And I don't want that. Well, that's fine. Okay. So we'll accept that. Okay, so now we've got a rough shape that I can use to make the fin on the arm. So I'm gonna run this around here. Scale that down. Okay, yeah, that's pretty close. Pretty close. Do I want it sticking? Yeah, let's do that. Let's do that because I'm gonna trim the end of that down a little bit. And I think what I want to do is something like this. Yeah. And then yeah, I think that's all I'm going to do on it. But then that's not quite what I wanted. Smooth it out a little bit. Yeah, okay. So now that I've got the fin blocked out, I'm going to go back over and I'm going to remesh that so that the geometry topology of it will flow a little bit better. Right now, let's take a look. Let's see, where is it? There it is. So there's some like weird seam stuff happening along here, just because I took that sphere and squashed and stretched it out. So I'm going to retopologize that, and let me add this edge really quick so that I can kind of tell it that I want kind of an edge there. So we're going to take the Orb Cracks brush and let's increase that a little bit. Not exactly the effect that I wanted, so all right. Now it's going to be close enough, and then I can continue to squish it around once it's remeshed. And it's thinking. Look at that. Ooh, opportunity to get a drink of water. Okay. So yeah, there's still a couple of weird intersections on there. Let's see if I can drop that and see if it'll remesh it by half. There we go. Look at that. Nice clean lines on there. Okay, so that's super cool. All right. Okay, so we're going to go back to our arm object, and let's see. I think I want to remesh the arm object too. Nah, I'm going to wait and do that because I'm going to merge these two guys together. So we're going to merge down. Okay, and let's punch up the resolution on it just a little bit. Yeah. Okay. And then I'm going to go to Dynamesh, and then I want to select Polish because I want to kind of smooth out some of this, even though I'm going to do that with the... Okay. So, So it's all one mesh now, and you can see it's stitched along this area here. So now I'm gonna remesh all of that as one piece, and then I can go in and do some sculpting on that arm. Yeah, there we go. Very nice. All right, cool. All right, let's punch up the Oop, that's not what I wanted to do. Okay. Let's see. Are there little spiny doodads on there? Let's look at that. Let's look at the art again. A little bit. Yeah, it's, one way or the other. So could probably do something there. Probably something a little there. Let's bring that out. Oop. Nope. Man, you really got to turn these things around and check them from every angle. So you want to make sure something doesn't look weird. All right. Okay, I think I've got the spines roughed in. Let's see if we can add a little bit of texture to the arm. I'm going to go over here to my standard brush and select the drag rectangle. And I think I've got some textures in here. Let's see which one. Is that it? Not sure that's the one. Let's see. Which was that? Rock 7, 5. Yeah, that's not quite it. What did I have the last time for his head? Oh, I think I have to import that one. I have to import that texture because I had saved it over. Let's go up to my alpha folder and let's see. I think it was these guys. Nope, still set to that. Let's see. Okay, yeah. So there's the skin alpha. I think that's the texture. So that's what I'm looking for. I'm gonna have to go in and punch up the punch up the contrast on it again. Where was that? Here we go. Intensity, yeah, contrast. I'm still getting some artifacts on there, but that's okay. Oop. See, I don't think he's got enough resolution to do that yet. Let's divide it a little bit more. Yeah, that's pretty good. They look kind of like barnacles, I think. And for an aquatic species, I guess that's fairly appropriate, right? Okay, we'll put a couple of guys in there, and something in here. Okay, and then I think, let's see, I had this little bump texture. Was it this? Yeah. That's probably this is going to be so small. That's probably this texture is not even going to show up. Yeah, yeah, the focal shift, yeah, it does. Let's see. You are correct. If I go back to the other one, which is, which one was it? This right here. Uh, there it is. It cleans that up. You're right. I forgot about that. So let's see. We'll go back to our bumps. I'm going to kind of smooth out some of this stuff. Again, this, just to get some perspective on this. Let's see. Here's our ruler. So the arm is probably about 3 millimeters thick at this point. So a lot of these little tiny bumps will just be just a slight hint of texture. So I'm going to kind of soften a little bit of this to kind of feather it in. Because what I want is just the impression of something on there. Okay. So let's get rid of that ruler. And we're going to work on the upper arm where the sleeve is going to be. So let's move our cuff up to here. And we'll select these guys. And I'm going to go back and I'm going to remesh the deltoid. Let's see. No, that's that's the cuff. That's fine. Yeah. Okay, let's move that out. Let's move. Yeah, it's one of those days. I have done this before. Even though a lot of times when I sit down to do this, it's like, how does that work again? So, and the thing about it is like, particularly working with ZBrush, it's one thing to sit there and sculpt and try to remember, hey, how did I make this arm or whatever the last time when I was sculpting the thing? But in this instance, it's like, there's a lot of little functions of the software that are like, okay, well, I only use this if I'm doing this one particular thing. And so, like, when I do that one thing, it's like it's kind of a convoluted process. Like, you have to click this or move this slider or set this thing up, and then you do the thing, and then you go on and sculpt the rest of the stuff, and it's fairly straightforward. But then, two or three figures later, you're like, oh, I got to do this thing now, like I did 3 figures ago, and how did I do that? So, unless you're, you know, uh, a super whiz at remembering like all of the stuff, and I don't really expend a lot of brain power to try to keep all of that stuff in my head. I find myself going back to YouTube and reviewing stuff, periodically, that it's like, oh yeah, I remember now how I did that thing, or it's like, oh, I want to do the thing, and how did I do that the last time? And so I don't find that I use a lot of texture stamps for a lot of stuff. I don't really do a lot of creatures and aliens unless it's for like our stuff. Most of the things that I do for client work are the sorceress, or that kind of thing, and there's not really an opportunity to do a lot of skin texture stamps on that stuff, working from the art. So it just, you gotta remember it. So I'm just going right now and working some folds into this sleeve, kind of punch up some details on there. We'll see how this looks in context in just a minute. So okay, so actually I'm going to put these two together. I'm going to merge this down with the cuff, and I'm going to group all of that together as one polygroup. So and then with the forearm is here. So it looks pretty good. It looks like a sleeve, right? Okay. So maybe this could be a little soft. Let's kind of poke that in a little bit. All right. So I'm gonna merge that down, and then those are still two polygroups. Okay. So let's get some stuff done on the body here. I'm gonna do, let's see, where does that fit into the pelvis? Okay, it's right here. All right, so let's go down to the pelvis, and let's see, let's mirror that, and I'm gonna bring this out just a little bit, because I'm gonna make a belt that's going to hide these two parts for where his pants are and where his torso is. So let's see. So we're going to go back to the body. First of all, I need to get rid of the neck, because the neck is let's see. I'm gonna put the head into a collar on there. So let's go ahead and trim that off. So we'll go back to our, let's see, these new knife brushes are super great. Yeah, there we go. Okay, so let's hide this and work just on the torso section. So let's see if we can remesh that and see how that works. Let's divide it a little bit more and try that again. A little bit better. Yeah, looking pretty good. Run that one more time. Yeah, okay. So, and now that I've done that, I'm going to go back and I'm going to inflate that just a little bit since it's kind of smoothed it out. Why aren't you doing it? There we go. Okay. All right. Alanti have kind of a ridge that runs down their front and their dorsal section. That's kind of, they have like a distended sternum. Oop, and I need to do that. So I'm going to build this up just a little bit. Let's see. Yeah, let's go to remove tool. Make that bigger. There we go. So we've got kind of a ridge across there. And bring that back down. Okay, they've got the same thing on their back. Oop. Got to switch over to the other thing. Okay. Right. Okay. So there we go. Right, let's move that back into line. Smooth that a bit. Okay. And then we'll check that with our context. Okay. So I'm going to bring this in just a little bit. And you can, let's see, I don't know if you can see that on the art. No, it's not from that view. But this guy, like if you turn him around, that's what he looks like. So okay. So let's go back and look at that art again, because I'm trying to see. He does have like a little. He does have like a mantle. I guess they're open collar, and that's his breather unit, or part of it, or that's the inner collar. Yeah. So does Unagi have that? No. Okay. I'm thinking what we may do is we may make this as an undershirt, and then maybe he'll have, this will be like part of his jacket, like this rolled up sleeve or something would be his undershirt. So, okay. So we'll go back to, we'll divide that. Let's run that up to about, ooh, yeah, that's close. Okay. to go here. And here. Yeah, so the collar will cover that. Okay, let's work on this belt a little bit. So we'll hide the arm. Actually, we don't really need that. I just need this section right here. Okay. So we'll go back. I'm going to pick this cylinder again. And then we'll insert that. Where'd it go? There we go. Okay. And this is basically the same process as making the cuff. The thing about this is like, you know, this is how Sculptin miniatures is kind of different from you know, Sculptin game assets, is that like, you know, like if I was going to model this as a game asset, it would be, you know, like a loop with, you know, open, you know, like an actual belt. And that's, you know, so it, you know, you could animate it separately or whatever, but, with this, you don't really want any undercuts. So I don't really want any gaps underneath the belt, because if this is going to go to, you know, production casting, which, you know, not everything is going to be, yeah, again, it's going to be printed out as an STL file, but those prints may wind up going to mold and, you know, either be cast in resin or CO cast plastic or something like that. So you want to make sure that, like, if this belt, you know, had an undercut on it and silicone could get under there, or the mold stuff, then, you know, it could cause tear out and that sort of thing. So creating these solid objects for the accessories and everything as, you know, individual solid objects, it prevents the likelihood of there being some kind of an undercut that would, you know, catch mold material in there and tear it out. So, and that's one thing that, you know, as a practical sculptor, or, you know, a traditional sculptor, you kind of have to keep in mind also when you're sculpting practically, because if you're running hoses or tubes or something along the surface of something that you've already sculpted, then, you know, you're going to run the risk of having the mold material catch under there and cause a problem. So, and a lot of times, even if you do sculpt stuff in you know, like multi-part pieces and stick them together, and then that's going to go to mold, a lot of times you have to take putty and stuff and go in and fill in cracks and crevices and things where it would create a problem in that. And I do that also in sculpting digitally too, because a lot of times, you know, once I get the figure posed and I get it, you know, everything set up like I think it's going to go, sometimes there's gaps in the geometry, you know, between the gun and vest or something, you know, just some kind of a space in there. And I'll just take one of these sphere objects and stick it in there, and then, you know, poke it around and shape it so that it kind of fills in that gap. Shane Olson, that was sculpted like a lot of the Disney, whatever they're called, the little Disney figurines or whatever they call that bubble gum. You know, it's like we're just going to shove bubble gum in there and fill it in so that those gaps don't cause problems with the mold. So, and here I'm just actually I need to put symmetry on for that, and I don't think I did all the way. So I'm just shaping the belt and making sure that it follows the contour of the figure. Man, this lag and stuff on that, I've got to upgrade my system. It's just, it's running super slow. Okay. Let's do this a little bit. We're gonna taper this part in, and not so far. Let's pin that. And taper this part out. Okay. And then we'll do that again. Taper this a little bit, taper that a little bit. Okay, and then I'm going to inflate that so I can round the corners off, because I don't want like super sharp edges on the edge of the belt. Again, like we talked about that last week. If I've got a super sharp edge on that belt, you can see the highlight on there, how thick the highlight is. If I was painting that with a paintbrush, then, and there's a super crisp edge along the edge of the belt, well, first of all, leather is going to be kind of thick, and it'll be kind of rounded and stuff anyway, and so you want to simulate that as a material. But in this instance, as a painted item, you want to kind of round that edge off just a little bit, so that when you hit the edge of it with your brush, it's going to put enough paint on there that the highlight will show up. The edge highlighting will be seen, and not this, you know, tiny little sliver of paint. So that's another thing to kind of watch out for, particularly, you know, sculpted miniatures. And that's going to come from, you know, experience and, you know, specifically sculpted minis, and not, you know, something else. So okay, let's go back to this. Is that okay? Pull this out just a little bit. Okay. I think what I'm going to do before I run next week's stream is I'm just going to reboot my system. Just, you know, do a hard reboot and just reset everything, and then just launch OBS and ZBrush, and that's it. So okay, so at least we've got the belt blocked in, and that is going to allow me to kind of go in, and I'm going to go back to the torso, right, and let's turn off symmetry on that, because I don't want to do that. I do that every time. Okay, let's run this down just a little bit. Yeah, that's a good thing. Maybe I should save it. Because it seems like it wants to crash. There we go. I don't know if any of this is going to be seen back here because we may put like a jacket or a vest or something on him, but they'll be there. All right. Okay, so that's kind of weird looking to me. I'm looking at his legs, and since I've moved the pelvis out just a little bit, I think I need to adjust the top of his thighs. Yeah. Okay, let's see. Is that still... Yeah. I'm going to mask that. Nope. Not too far. Just enough. Okay, let's get kind of an idea of where we are with all this now. Let's see. All right. So I'm going to go back and rename the cylinder as belt. And what I've got is I have some pre-made pouches and belt buckles and things like that in another file. And basically, since I've already got like a little collection of them, I'm just going to pull those in and place those around the belt and so forth later on. But this will give me an idea of, you know, where to put that stuff. So, and then let's kind of adjust this a little bit. Okay. Yeah. All right. Okay, so he's coming a little further along there. So it's looking pretty cool. He is very Alanti-like. Okay, so the last thing that I'm going to do on this before I move on to do some other stuff is I'm going to go ahead and create an object so that I can sculpt his rebreather. And I'm going to insert, let's see, where do I want to put that? Let's put it up here. Okay. Okay. So then I can go in and basically kind of scoop that out if I wanted this to be like a modular thing where, you know, he can, you can pose the head, how you want. So, okay. So we're gonna leave this guy here, and then I'll probably work on that a little bit between now and next week. So hopefully I should be able to have him finished up and some other stuff by then, and then may work on some posing and so forth. So let's save that where we are. And then I'm going to open up that Edo file, and we're gonna do some tentacles and stuff for the Edo, and then that'll wrap it up tonight. So okay, so let's find the Edo file, and that's going to be over here. Let's see, Edo. Hey, I don't know if you guys know this or not, but I had notifications set up on my computer earlier today, and it told me that it's National Margarita Day. And unfortunately, I didn't know that ahead of time, or I would have made up some margaritas to have today on National Margarita Day, because that is one of my favorite things. So once again, even though I set a notification for myself to be notified in time for National Margarita Day, I missed it again. Okay, so here we've got our Edo Fellini head. Okay, and basically I've got like 3 of these guys. Okay, so I've got this one there, and they're all shaped a little bit differently. This guy's got 2 sets of eyes, because he's like a super psyker leader guy. Okay. So what I did was I went ahead, and when I set this file up, I've got the base here, and then I've got my little brack dude as, for sizing. So I can kind of get an idea of like how tall these things need to be. Let's see. I think I may have some expired pre-mixed margarita in the garage fridge. Yeah. My favorite pre-made margarita mix is from On the Border. Okay. And look, and some people, may say it's like, oh, well, they may have their own preferences, but I mean, that's what I like. That's one of my favorites. National Rain Day. Yeah. Well, ironically enough, it rained here today. So, we got a lot of that this morning, and the ground is all squishy again. But going back to talking about the margarita mix, I went to On the Border, and I bought four of their buckets of margarita mix that they have, because for some reason it used to come in a bottle. Like you could go to the grocery store or the liquor store or wherever and buy On the Border margarita mix. But for some reason, and this was actually before the pandemic. So I had trouble finding it. And I guess they, quit supplying it or something. I don't know what happened. But anyway, I hadn't been able to find any of it. So I just went to the restaurant and they sold me some there. So I've got that stashed in the fridge out here in the shop. And and then I've got one up at the house. So whenever I want to make margaritas or whatever, I've got a surplus of that on hand. So I don't really know. I mean, I haven't opened the other containers, so I don't know that it actually goes bad or not. I mean, there's no expiration date or anything on the container, so I don't know if that's a thing. So okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to load up the sucker brush and the tentacle brush that I made in order to make these tentacles. Okay, so what I need, and I've got the tentacle brush loaded there. So what this is it creates a tentacle, right? All right, and let's see, how do I want to do? I want to do that from the base. No. So I'm going to go up to the stroke palette and go into curve functions. No, curve modifiers, and I'm going to reset the fall off on it. So I want to flip this horizontally. Okay, so that way when I draw this, it's going to have it's going to start from the tip and then go to the base down here. Why is that? Oh, okay, yeah. I've got symmetry on. Okay, let's turn that off. Turn that off for that. Turn it off for that and that. Okay. Oop. X. 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 Okay. So here is what I'm going to do. I am going to turn on transparency so that I can see through all of this stuff. And then, let's see. Let's move this base up here. Okay. So that way I can start drawing, and it's going to create this tentacle. And then I need to set this brush to like 40, 45, 46. Should be about the right size. Let's see. Yeah, maybe a little bit bigger. $52. Let's see. Yeah, okay. So the more she drank, the stronger the next pitcher would get until everyone was drunk. Okay, yeah, I can see how that would happen. Yeah. Like when I make rum and coke, that kind of happens to me too, because it's like you just add like, oh, I need a little more rum. I need a little more rum. So, yeah, I get that. Okay. All right. So I've got my tentacle brush set up, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to draw out a tentacle, and that's not what I want to do. Okay. Let's. Yeah, I think that is that going to be long enough? I don't know. We'll see. Okay, so I'm going to grab this end. Well, I'm going to grab this end of the tentacle. Nope, not that end. Here we go. Yeah. Okay. So now I can kind of maneuver this guy around. And kind of shape it like I want. Let's see. There we go. All right. Man, shaping these tentacles is kind of tedious. But once you get them all set up, they're really great. All right. So let's. Not what I wanted. There we go. Okay. So what I'm trying to do is get this tentacle positioned underneath. ZBrush, you are frustrating me. I'm trying to put it pretty much underneath him. Yep. Just about like that. Not that. All right. Need to pull this up just a little bit more. Oh. It is very touchy. Very touchy. And this is an instance where I'm using the mouse to move all of this stuff around because I'm not really doing any sculpting here. I'm just trying to position this object in space, and so I'm, you know, checking it against the front and the side to make sure that it's like I'm looking for. Okay, so that's roughly the position of the tentacle that I'm wanting. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to turn off the manipulator line. Let's see, there we go. Okay, and then I'm going to, let's see, is it, yeah, it's on the base. Okay, so I'm going to select this, mask it, and then split the masked point. So that way now it's its own object. Oh, and I forgot. There's the, yeah, okay. So let's do that. Okay, so auto group so that it makes it all one polygroup again. Yeah. Why does that? There we go. Okay, now we can split it out. For some reason, those end caps were staying separate objects. Okay, so now I can split that tentacle off, and it's its own thing. Okay, great. All right, so 1 down, 5 to go. And you may wonder, 5 tentacles, 6 tentacles for an Edo, and that's because they're not an octopus. They're an Edo Fleeny, and they only have 6 tentacles. And if you guys know why they have 6 tentacles, post that in the chat, or post it down in the comments below why you think the Edo Fleeny have 6 tentacles instead of 8. And there's a Ray Harryhausen documentary that talks about it came from beneath the sea with the giant octopus in that. And the answer is in that documentary. So I may reveal that in our next live session. Let's see. Let's catch up on the chat over here real quick. Let's see. Hey, James. Thanks for jumping in. It's good to see you, man. Let's see. Oh, well, doing painting. Okay, well, that's understandable. You know, I mean, if we can make some concessions for you, you know, for doing hobby stuff, that's not a problem. Oh, I'm glad you're liking the Edo guy. So yeah, we're just adding some tentacles on here. Now I had already sculpted a bunch of the little spawnlings that we put in the web store. I think it was last week or whatever. So basically, this is the same head as the spawnlings, and I just imported that in here and then made some proportions adjustments. I changed the size of the eyes and the brow ridges and so forth, and the shapes of the head and the proportions of that to make them more, I guess, adult sized Edo Fleeny and whatever. So, but essentially it's just that same mesh. So. Let's see. 6 is easier to animate than 8. That is correct. That is the correct answer. Ray Harryhausen, because he said that in the documentary, he said that you would never see all 8 tentacles at the same time on screen. So he just put 6 tentacles on the octopus and animated those. And that's why it's only got 6 tentacles. So I thought, oh, well, if Ray Harryhausen can get away with that, then so can I. I only have to sculpt 6 tentacles, right? So I adopted that as my method for making the Edo Fleeny. So okay, so I'm going to go back to my base object, which is what I'm using in order to because I want the tentacle. I want the tentacle brush to hug the surface of the top of the base so that I know that it'll make contact with that. And then I can pull the rest of the tentacle up and attach it to the bottom of the head of the Edo, wherever it's going to go. And the other reason why I set it to transparent is like, okay, if I've got all these objects that are showing and I start drawing a tentacle, and okay, it's going to do stuff like that when I come across, because the object wants to come up and snap to the top of the head, and I don't want it to do that. I want to be able to like wrap it around the base and then pull the end of it up and then pull it to where it's going to attach at the head. So instead of doing that, if I set this to transparent, where everything is kind of invisible, it's invisible to the brush. So then if I go to the top view, then I can take the tentacle and, did it break it? It broke it. Yeah, I'm going to have to go back and let's do this. Yeah, there we go. Okay. All right, so then I can do that. And it's mostly on the base. Let's do this. Okay, so then like I did before, I can go and pull this up to where it's going to meet on the back of the head. Yeah. And this is a little bit. It's just as tedious doing this digitally, sculpting these guys, as it was, sculpting them practically. I had worked out a method for making the tentacles in putty, and what I did was I used Procreate putty, which is two-part epoxy putty. It's very similar to green stuff in that when it cures, it's still kind of flexible. It's a little bit soft, but it holds the details. So what I did was I took a thin piece of wire and I rolled out putty around that wire and tapered it at one end, kind of like what you're seeing here, how the tentacle tapers. It's thicker up here towards the base, and then as it goes to the end, it gets more narrow. And so what I did was I would roll it out on that wire to length, and then I would take two sponges, and the sponge was like you get in a blister pack that minis come in. And so I would take two of those sponges and I would put the wire with the putty while it's still soft. I'd put it on that and roll it back and forth, and it would create the texture and so forth on the tentacle. And then I would let them cure. And then once the tentacles were cured, because it had wire on the inside of it, then I could just pose the tentacle in the shape that I wanted and then attach them all together at the base and then, sculpt the head on there. So it's completely different than what I had to figure out in order to do this. So, because first of all, I had to figure out how to make a what is it? What's it called? An insert mesh brush. Yeah. And so I had to create that object and then do a bunch of experimentation to get it to behave properly, and it still doesn't. It's like I'm fighting with them. It's like herding cats, trying to get these tentacles posed like you want them. So, and then there's stuff like this that happens, like depending on where you click. And it's like, I don't know what's going on there. So let's pull this down. And before I run out of time, because this is all just wash, rinse, and repeat, right? So I've got these two done. And what I'll do is I'll go ahead and texture one of them and put the suckers on there so you guys can kind of see how I do that. It's kind of fun because it's sort of detailing it out a little bit. Quit doing that. Okay, so let's turn transparency off and see if I've got that lined up. Yeah, okay. So there's a couple of tentacles right there, right? But they're still very, computery looking. All right, so let's delete that, and I need to hide this. Nope. There we go. And then we're going to split the mask points. Okay. Huh. That's weird. I've wound up with two of these objects for some reason. Okay. Let's look at this. They're identical. Okay. Okay, why won't you? Yeah, there it is. Okay, so I'm going to mask that and then split mask points. And now the tentacle is going to be on its own. Okay, so we're going to hide that base. And there's the tentacle. And there's the duplicate base for some reason. And so let's delete that. And then there's the other tentacle. Okay, so now I've got that. I don't know. I don't know what it's doing. Okay, so yeah. There's the tentacle and there's the other tentacle. Right. Okay, so let's just start with the first one. Okay, so what I want to do is I want to let's see, geometry. Let's punch up the okay, that's not supposed to be happening. So let's try this. Not what I wanted at all. What's going on here? That's crazy. Okay. I guess what I'll do is I'll just have to manually move these end caps, which is a pain. I've never had to do that before. See, and they don't even line up now. Okay, close enough because when I mesh it, it's gonna. Weld points. Is that in the in Z modeler? In the lowest subdivision level. Well, this is the only subdivision level that I've got. It's not really going to matter because when I go to Dynamesh it, it's going to mesh it all together. Because I'm going to go to, let's see, 512, project and polish. Yeah, there we go. So then I'll go back and remesh it. Let's see, geometry, then modify topology. Okay, well it's fused it after I dynameshed it and stuff, so I'll go back and play with that if that happens again. And I have a feeling that the other tentacle may do that too. So I can actually check that and see. No, see, that one's still fused, so it didn't separate. So let's see, let's punch that up to, and then what are you? Let's see, I want to get you up to 305. There we go. So I don't know what the problem with that particular tentacle was, why it was being obstinate about that. Okay, so moving on real quick, I'm going to go over to my standard brush, and then I'm going to change that texture to, where did it go? Is it? Nope. There we go. The cracks. Okay. So, and then I want to set that to sub. Yeah. Okay, and that's way too much. So let's crank the intensity down. Let's try 15. Yeah. Okay, and then I also want to go to, let's see. Where is that? Is it modifiers? Man, I haven't done this in a while. Let's see. Alpha. Let's see. There's a. No, it's in. Let's see. Back face mask. There we go. That's what I'm looking for. Okay, because if I run it on this side, then I don't want it to come out on the other side. So, and that's not the one that I want anyway. I want that one. Yeah, that's the same one. Oh, okay, alpha. Let's see. I'm gonna set the contrast back to 0. Yeah, there we go. Okay. All right. So I'm going to texture these tentacles. And what's funny is that this particular texture, like I've printed some of these guys, and it really looks like the texture that was on the tentacles, the ones that I had sculpted in putty that I had rolled over the sponge. it looks very similar to that. So even though these are kind of square shaped, and the sponge was more, it had more rounded more rounded impressions in it because of the sponge texture. And you know, and it's not really a sponge, I don't guess. It's foam. It's the little foam inserts from the blister pack, the packing material. And you know, if I wasn't lazy, you know, I'd probably go and make my own alpha mask, you know, for this, and you know, a custom thing. But you know, it works well enough, so it gets the job done. And I tried using it as a, you know, applying an alpha to the object, but I couldn't get it to map, and I didn't really want to mess with doing, you know, UVs and all that kind of stuff on there. It just, it seems like this just seems quicker, and it's not as fiddly. I can put the things, you know, right where I want to put them, or go back and change them if I want to. Okay, so once I've got kind of a general texture, I'm running out of mouse space here. Let's see. Oop. Okay. Yeah. All right. So that's the front of the thing. Okay. So it's gonna meet the other tentacle about here. So I don't really need to see any suckers suckers until it starts to come out of that curve right there. So I'm going to hide that tentacle, and I'm going to pick my sucker brush, and I'm going to start putting suckers on there. And Edo only have one row of suckers. And there again, it's not because it's necessarily biologically accurate. It's because I don't have to sculpt 2 rows of suckers. So Edo Fellini only have 1 row of suckers on their tentacles. And it's like, you know, I mean, these are my things, right? I'm making them up. So 1 row of suckers. Easy enough. All right. So I think those are the only ones that are going to be visible. Whoop. Well, no, I've probably got a couple of more down here. And the thing about applying them, I tried to create like some kind of an insert mesh brush thing that would make a row of them and all this, but I never could get them to come out round. They always looked oval. So I still wind up having to apply them one at a time. Okay, that looks like that's getting down to where the base is. So I think that's probably going to be, you know, unless it turns. Maybe they turn and do this. Oop. Right? Because the tentacle would rotate. That one's too big. All right. So I'm going to turn the polygroups back on so I can see what I'm doing here. And then I'm going to separate these. Let's see, split mask points. Okay, so now they're their own object, and I can go and I'm going to go into the geometry palette, and there's the modified topology palette that you were telling me about. So let's see, it's, oh, okay. Wow, you've got a bunch of weld stuff in there, weld points right there. Okay, cool. I will check that out the next time that is separated. So let's see. What I'm going to do is I'm going to divide those suckers a little bit, and I want to go to the deformation palette, and I'm going to go to inflate and inflate them a little bit. Ooh, or maybe not. Yeah, here we go. Whoop, too much. I think about 5. And that kind of makes them round. Yeah. All right. Okay, let's... use the move tool to kind of set them into the tentacle a little bit more. Make sure they're nice and seated on there. Okay, so sucker punch. Hey, yeah, that's interesting. That may wind up in the book. Very clever, Brian. Thanks for posting that. I'll definitely tell Vicky about that one. Yeah. So That is funny. All right. So I'm going to go ahead and put those suckers back on. Let's see, merge down. Okay. So now those are all together again, but I'm going to leave those, I'm going to leave those polygroups separate in case I need to go back and select those suckers at some point and make adjustments. But okay, so let's look at the head. So up here where it attaches the head, I kind of want to blend this in a little bit more. And so I'm going to move this actually up into the head. And those textures and stuff will help, hide that seam. And then once it's all meshed together, then you won't be able to tell that it's two separate pieces. It'll all blend together. But yeah, that's pretty much making Edo. So I've got this guy to do. So I've got four tentacles that will be supporting him, and then 2 tentacles will be weapon type tentacles. So and then there's actually the Edo have a thing. They've got like some squid have little paddles on the end of two of their tentacles, and the Edo have those, and they've got like poisonous spines on like some of their attacks. So I'll probably wind up sculpting those, and so that one of the guys will have that. I was kind of hoping that we would get to a little bit of the costuming, and maybe maybe I'll be working on some more of them or whatever next week. If you have, anything that you kind of want to see or whatever, on the next session, post that down in the comments and everything. I'm going to kind of get wrapped up here. This is, pretty much the basic gist of putting the tentacles and stuff on there. So it's just a matter of going back and, making the rest of them. And I've got 3 of these guys to do, so it's probably going to take a while, and it's not like super exciting or anything, but that gives you an idea of pretty much how it works. So, and I appreciate you guys coming and sitting in on the session tonight, and thanks for keeping me company in the chat. And thanks for the tips, Shane, for welding that stuff and the other tips and everything. So, yeah, I appreciate, all the comments and Hugo's talking about, the, dynamic setting on solo. So, that's helpful to me, and, hopefully you guys have, found this interesting. So, I guess I will wrap up this session, and we're going to meet again. I'll be sculpting live, probably something completely different next week on Wednesday night. This is going to be 6 p.m. Central Time is when I'm going to be on, from about 6 to 8 is usually when it is. And if you have anything that you want to see specifically or whatever, like I said, post that down in the comments, and I'll take a look at that, and I'll see if I can include that on the next episode. In the meantime, I've got a special message here that I want to play for you guys from Shopcat. And again, thanks for jumping in the chat and checking out the live Sculptin stream, and I will see you guys all next Wednesday. So take care, and I will see you then. Shopcat says don't forget to scurry on over to bombshellminis.com. She's very excited to have you check out all the latest super cool offers, new releases, and upcoming projects this month. Also drop down below to see all of the links for this episode, and be sure to like and subscribe. That will really help us out. And we'll see you next week.